right? This is on everyone's minds, probably just given all that's been happening over the past few months. So we're going to talk about these things today. Before we get started, Dan, can you go to the next slide?
Oh, sorry, can you see that?
So for those who are joining us today and who are not already familiar how to use the Zoom, you can ask your questions at any time using the chat feature. It's going to be at the bottom of your screen. There's a black bar that has icons, and you're going to just use the little speech bubble. It says chat, and that will pop up the chat box to the right of your screen, and you can enter your message in there. Yeah, today we're gonna, we want to be engaging, and we want you to ask questions so we know how to address your concerns. So definitely, interrupt at any time, and be sure to ask a lot of questions for us or have comments, just some dialogue going back and forth. All right. Okay, so I want to know who here joining us today already owns real estate. Anyone own, whether it's your primary residence, you already have some investments, who here is brand new to this whole idea of owning real estate? Or, okay, I see a thumbs up. John, JD, you've got some real estate. Awesome, good. Anyone else on here? Own investments, or what else do I see here? Okay, Helene, yes, we know, all right. Okay, awesome. Okay, ooh, 3 investments. That's the dream right there. Primary residence plus 3 investment properties. That's awesome. Okay, alrighty, perfect. Thanks, guys. The next one is for those who don't, and maybe looking to go more into investment side of it. What do you want to get out of today's webinar? Anything specific, burning questions that you have about buying real estate?
Yeah, let's talk real estate today, guys. So anything you're interested in, curious about, heard from, just trying to think of what's going to happen in the future. Yeah, put that question out there. Let's see what that is. And let's talk about it.
Why is 3 the dream? Well, just in general, John, to have investment properties, passive income generated, any amount of, I guess, investment property would be good to have, not just 3. All right, so I didn't get any questions from the chat. Oh, where is the best rental properties?
Good question.
Okay, that's a great question. We'll be sure to cover that. Yeah, Dan, don't forget that one as we move forward.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's some other commonly asked questions. Should I wait till the prices hit the bottom? What is going to happen to prices in the next few months or even the year, right? What's going to happen to the inventory? Are we going to see foreclosures and short sales? Should we wait for that? Will there be challenge getting tenants if you're an investor, right? That's definitely a concern. Or what if you're using your money from the stock market and that's been affected by everything going on? What should you do? And I don't qualify right now. Should I wait? What are my options? So these are commonly asked questions, and there are a lot right here. So what we're going to do is kind of chunk these down and take them into groups. The first 3 we'll cover right here. Yeah, Dan, take it away.
Yeah, so these are the questions that a lot of folks are coming up and approaching us with. Curious about the market, right? We know that we're going through a shift, and the question is, should I wait until the prices hit the bottom? And what's really interesting about that is you'll never know where the bottom is until it passes you, right? Yeah. So how are you going to time that bottom? What we can do is in a few minutes, we'll show you a chart that will illustrate what has happened in the past and how it might repeat itself to some level, right? What's going to happen in the next few months. We're going to talk about that. And then, what's going on with the current inventory. Well, here's a question for you. Tiff, are prices going up or down? And if you can put your thumb up or thumb down, maybe not a thumb up, thumb down, up or down in the chat box, that'd be great. We can get a feeling of what people in the audience are thinking about the market. So is the prices going up or we're going to go down? Yeah. Going down, Helene says, yeah, there's a good chance. one of the blessings of COVID is that I've been able to surf a lot every day. Yeah, I only surf on the days that end with day. But yeah, I've been surfing in the morning and the evening. But you know, you go down to Waikiki, and you know, it's a ghost town down there, right? There's no hotels are shut down, right? We have no airplanes coming to our market, and our economy is driven by tourism. So when there's no money circulating in the economy, how could it go up, right? What's that chances of that happening? So I anticipated not going up actually, and maybe let me back up by saying in certain pockets it actually will look like that in the short term because of a lack of inventory, right? So the lack of inventory is what will keep prices stable and not fluctuate so dramatically. Over time though, we're going to see it to dip a bit. And let me just show you why. Well, you know, back in 87, this chart's from 1987 all the way to now. And from 87 to 1990, we saw this huge growth of appreciation, right? And then what happened after the peak of 1990? Well, we started seeing a dip, a significant dip, so much so that it never recovered the peak of, I think it was late 90, early 91. That price point never recovered for 12 years. 2002 is the next time that it actually got to the same values, right? It took 12 years to recover. Well, that was the first recession. Then we saw a huge incline, and this was a large growth here. This is where John will remember that, you know, it's stated income loans. You could get loans that's just saying I made this much money. And then what happened after the peak of 07? Well, we saw that decline as well, right? So after every rise of a market, we see a decline of the market. This one, it dropped a bit, but this one was only a 7-year recession recovery time period, right? 07 to 14, it recovered, and then it kept going up, right? Well, we saw the peak in early of 2019, and it's gone up and down a little bit, but you can start to see it stopped increasingly going up. You're going to start to see a decline here, a small couple percentage points, not a huge amount. And the reason for that is demand's still high and supply is low, right? But what's going to happen over time is, so imagine all these people who got loans that they actually could afford them this time around. See, on this last cycle here, these people, some of them, they couldn't afford it because the loans that they got, it created problems for them, and they actually had to default. So in the last recession, we saw a greater number of short sales and foreclosures. This cycle now, these people are temporarily out of work, right? And the government's going to give them, and the lenders are going to give them a forbearance program that will allow them to not pay their mortgage for 6 months, right? And after the end of 6 months, they're going to either have to pay it lump sum, or they're going to have to refinance the loan for the 24-month period or so, or the entire length of the loan. Or they might actually, what I've heard is, actually they might extend it for another 6 months, right? It sounds like a good idea, but in actuality, it's kind of like giving somebody a bigger shovel, right? Honestly, because it's going to be harder for them to get out of that hole if they're still not employed. Now, if they're employed, then that's a different story. And hopefully that's what happens, right? Hopefully we get back to some normalcy about tourism, but that's going to take a couple months. We know, right? Tourists aren't going to be back here till what, July?
Probably,
August?
yeah.
August?
I'm thinking more like August, September is
right?
more likely that will happen. Yeah.
So how many months can somebody not pay their mortgage and then eventually expect to pay it all back? Well, what's going to happen is you are going to see a little bit more distressed properties over time, but that's going to take you probably 6, 12, 24 months to really start seeing the beginning of it. Meaning the beginning we should probably see later this year, early of next. But that's just the beginning. Depending on how quickly we can recover our economy will determine, you know, how the inventory is going to look. We do know that, yeah, it's going to be more so than it is today, right? So the values today are higher mainly because there's no inventory. But after COVID opens up, meaning the stay-at-home opens up, more people are more comfortable
I feel like
putting their houses
there's,
on. I'm sorry?
yeah, I feel like there's going to be a flood in the market of buyers and of inventory coming to the market. So
Yeah,
after
100%. Yeah,
you know,
100%
the
too.
moral of the story, when I love this, I love when we use this chart because it shows you, the moral of the story here. Yeah, you're going to have your ebbs and flows in value, affected by, the economy, right? Immediate things. But I love this analogy. When was the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago,
20 years ago.
right? And you just see
Yeah.
that here. I talked to a gentleman in Aina Haina, an older gentleman. He bought his home 50 years ago in Aina Haina for $50,000. Crazy because the median price for a single family home in Aina Haina today, or at least last month, it was 1.3 million. So, I mean, it's just incredible. When is the best time to buy? Either in 1987 or today.
We did a study, right, Tiff? We took the last
Yeah.
20 years. It's over
Yeah.
5% in the
Yeah.
last 20 years, right? So obviously a wise investment in real estate to build wealth over the long term. As long as you're planning on holding it for 10 years or more, you're in good shape. You're in really
Right.
good shape because that's going to continue appreciating. Right? If you're thinking about buying it and selling it in 2 or 3 years, that could be problematic, to be honest with you. The market might not be able to let you make money
Rebound.
on it as you would
Yeah.
hope. Right? I mean, imagine, so take a look at this chart. So if the peak was last year, what happens if you sold it 4 years later, right? Well, typically after the peak, it's going to take a bit of a slide. So again, we don't know, honestly, what's going to happen, though, yeah, odds are it's going to take a time for us to recover. Not only Hawaii, ladies and gentlemen, this is the entire globe, right? We have a global recession, global pandemic. So not to be the bearer of bad news, though, here's the good news is there's going to be more inventory. And with more inventory, there likely will be a little dip in pricing, possibly, in certain areas. And then over time, there'll be greater motivation from sellers. And as a buyer, you always want that, right? Okay, let's move on.
Right. Okay. So the next set of questions, we kind of already, started to address this down is the foreclosure. Are we going to see that? You talked about that. Will there be, for investors, right? The concern is, hey, with everything going on and unemployment, is this going to affect my tenant's ability to pay rent? So that's a great question. Also the stock market, if you're planning to use that towards your down payment or, towards the purchase of a property, what can you do if you lost value there? So yeah, let's go ahead, Dan.
Sure, sorry about that. Yeah, as we talked earlier, it's not going to be the influx that we had in the last recession, though we are going to see some of these short sales and foreclosures. And it'll probably start showing up, 6, 12, 24 months down the road. So as an investor, yeah, I definitely would be concerned as well regarding, shoots, if I get an investment and I don't have income, that's a problem. Absolutely is a problem. So know that, what they say is 37% unemployment. I think it's better today. What that also means is there's over 60, 70% of people who are employed. And as a landlord, your property manager, or if you're going to self-manage it, you have a right to select your tenant. Well, you may want to be a little selective on the type of jobs they have,
Yes.
to a certain level, and just be more discriminating if you could, which means you might have to make the rental appealing to a larger number of people so that your selection process would be favorable to you. Right.
Yeah, and I think also as well, not just checking the credit history. It's checking rental history and going back to get referrals, because that will give you a better indication of, if the tenant will be a good tenant in place. Yeah, so definitely don't skip that part.
Yeah, we have a property management firm that the tenant actually pays an application fee. I don't even know what it is, $15 or $20. With that, we get a national criminal check, background check, court check, credit check. Obviously, Google them and Facebook them. What we're really looking for is not so much their personal character. It's more of their repayment history. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Are these guys responsible to their credit score is probably the better gauge for that. And then you can see exactly what they're willing to not pay and what they're willing to pay. Right? And then also talking to their previous tenants. You don't want to talk to the last tenant, you want to talk to the tenant before them. Because the current tenant's like, yeah, he's a great tenant because he wants to get rid of the guy. Right? So you want to talk to 2 or 3 deep on that if you're looking at it. Right.
Also, I think this would be a good place to interject Helene's question about where are good places to rent.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, what's really interesting is there's pockets everywhere. It's pretty amazing. So when you talk about best rental properties, really the question is, how do you define best, right? Is it by cap rate? Is it cash on cash? What mechanism are we using to define a good investment property? Interestingly enough, my belief system was always that we should buy in town in the core of Honolulu for the best rates. What we found lately, though, that may not necessarily be true. There are areas of the island, in particular, we found some, right, Tiff, up in Wahiawa, that have better cap rates. Yeah.
I think that's because, and you think about where Wahiawa is, right? I mean, you're close to military. So you have to think about your demographic. They're consistent. You know, you think about the rental history with military. They have to report to their, I don't know, the higher up, right?
Commanding officer, the CO.
Yeah, thank you, the commanding officer. So that's always a plus if you could consider being around or near where military want to be.
Right now, the strongest buyers and tenants are now military. They're the guys that guarantee got jobs, guarantee going to get paid, and their income's going to increase. And if they fail to pay, all you do is pick up the phone and call their commanding officer, and that gets solved immediately. So know that there's good and bad with everything. Good is that pretty responsible and you'll get paid. The downside is, you know, they're going to leave in 1 to 3 years, right? And so that's not a bad thing. You typically don't want a tenant that lasts for 20 or 30 years. Then it's so much harder to raise the rent, make changes, fix up the place, you know. So just things to keep in mind when you're renting. But yeah.
I do want to address another question before we get to yours, Jadine. Another question from Helene says, should I buy a smaller rental property that has a lower rent? And I interject, Dan, but to me, it's about the income versus the expense, right? So if you have a lower rent or lower income, it just has to match racially with, you know, ratio-wise to the expense, like your maintenance fee. Yeah. So that's kind of right, Dan? Does that make sense?
So 100% to hit it on the head. You take your income and your expenses and that relative, you're looking for your net operating income. And then you take that net operating income and then it's relative to the price that you're paying for the property, right? Right. And that's how we determine value.
So not necessarily buying a smaller rental property doesn't necessarily mean that your income's gonna be better. It just all depends on what the expense is.
Yeah, and like you said, what we're finding is the biggest variable is maintenance fees. Yes. That can change your net operating income and your cash on cash as well. Yeah. So yeah, that's the best thing to do, is measure that. Although if you were to compare in the same building, let's say the maintenance fees are about the same. For a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom, you're probably better off with a 1-bedroom. Assuming the maintenance fees vary with the square footage of the unit. Mm-hmm. And the main reason is the maintenance, the cost of holding that asset is not exponentially greater as opposed to the cost to buy the property. So a 1-bedroom versus a 2-bedroom, let's say a 1-bedroom's $300,000, 2-bedroom could be $400,000. Well, that's a 30% increase, but you're not going to get a 30% increase on your income, right? Mm-hmm. Oftentimes that may not happen. So in your net operating income, I should say, not your net income, your net operating income. So usually if you're in the same building, the smaller the units, the better a net cash flow and cap rate. Typically.
I noticed that. Yeah, in looking at rental comparables, the difference you're getting in rent for a 1 bedroom compared to a 2 bedroom is not a whole lot, and you
Yeah.
still have, you know, the maintenance fee, right? So yeah, I do notice that a lot. Like that
Yeah.
you pointed that out, Dan.
Yeah, the cost of buying is so much greater than the income, right?
Right.
You don't, your income doesn't rise as fast. Yeah.
Sure.
So anyways,
Exactly.
um,
We did have another question, Dan,
sure,
from
go ahead.
Nadine, and John kind of answered it as well, but asking if agreement of sale is an option during this time, and you can kind of look down at John's
Yep.
response. Um,
You want to read that out? I can see it.
Oh, John, okay. John's response is agreement of sale are advantageous when lending becomes tight or rates are high. We may see some more of this type of transaction during these times.
Yeah, yeah. We just did an agreement sale. We had a client that bought a beat up lot. He's going to build a house on up in where was that? Pohoa Valley,
Mhm.
like 800, almost $900,000 lot, big lot. But it was advantageous for him because it's hard to get a loan on those kind of properties, right? It's vacant land, right? So what he did is he took a short-term agreement of sale, and then it buys him time to create his drawings and get his permits done. So by the time that happens, he can then refinance that into a different type of loan and get out of the agreement of sale. The agreement of sale is structured well so that it was very inexpensive actually for him to do it that way. We were fortunate. But yeah, you're right. With the current, the only time that would really make sense is if the property is a little unusual to loan on a conventional mortgage, or if you're having trouble with your credit, you know, the credit issues or challenges, things like that. If your credit's good, you get a loan, right, John? I mean, the cost of the money is so cheap now. Right?
Yeah.
It's the best way to leverage and build wealth is to lock in on a 30-year. What is it now, John? Like 3.8, 3.5?
Right?
It is 3.875 at 0.75 points for investors.
Yeah. That's on. What is primary residence?
Rates went up a little bit last week or earlier this week. It's only Saturday. It's still 3.5% at 0.75 for Fannie Freddie.
Okay.
Portfolio products are still in really good shape. Yeah.
Mhm. So the next question, thanks, John. So the next one was, you know, we had some clients, and this was about a month or two ago. They said they lost so much money in the stock market. Multiple clients that had most of their retirement, you know, they lost a good portion of it. The good news is the market came back, right, ladies and gentlemen? I mean, the high point was at 29, and now we're at about 26, 27 now. So we're almost back. And now our clients are now calling us and saying, hey, I'm going to be ready to, you know, I got some money back now, so I'm more confident to get in the market, right? But if you did lose, I mean, if your intention was to use the money that you had there in those accounts and it's not available, then obviously you can't buy. If it is available, then you just making sure that you get the right property at the right pricing is the most important. So, you know, another question is, you know, I don't qualify, so, you know, should I wait? And what would your thoughts be on that, John? You're the lender. What is your thoughts? Somebody says, you know, I don't qualify for, let's say I want to buy a $500,000 place, but I don't qualify. I can only qualify for a $400,000 place. And, you know, with the low cost of the money now, you know, you're going to lock in for 30 years, right? So would you want to lock in a low rate for the time being to get your foot in the market? Right. That's the question.
Yeah, thanks. This is all part of the planning process. And this is what we like to see. Smart investors and buyers will take a look at where they're at and work with a team. And we can take a look and identify what we can polish up, any rough spots, to make sure that you present that pretty credit picture, and get the best rates out there.
Yeah. My suggestion is, you know, if the rates are good, which they are, and you find the right property, I just get it because you're locking in at a low rate, right?
Yeah.
That's my thought exactly.
Yeah.
It's like
Go ahead, Tiff.
Oh no, you know, it's like with real estate, right? Um, it's like a move. If you think of it as a moving train, because the values are always rising. You know, to try and catch up to the front car of where you want to be on the outside of the train is very hard to do because the train's moving fast.
Yeah.
But if you can jump onto the car that you know right away, then you can move your way up in real estate a lot easier while you're on the train of real estate. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, we bought our first investment property right after we got married, actually, in 1990. We wanted to start building wealth, and it was an opportunity to put it very low down, and we did. And eventually sold that a number of years later, parlayed that, took the value and proceeds from there to build wealth into another property that was better. And that one has grown. So that's kind of what you do, right? You just build wealth over time. And that's the main thing about this building wealth is it's over time, right? It's not going to happen overnight. Time and night, they're a little different. Okay. Oh, you're buying cash, you're going to get pre-approved for a loan. Due to time, why don't we just move right into John? We'd like to introduce you to a very special guest of ours, John Davis. He's with Oahu Home Loans, and he's here to help us understand, you know, if you're going to get a loan, what's that look like and what's that journey look like? Go ahead, John.
Thanks, Dan. We talked about the current rate situation. What we're looking at now is a historic trend on fixed interest rates. And although everyone is, hey, the rates shot up, it shot up by 0.25% last week, basically. So we're still sub 4%, which is incredible. You think about it. And I know that you dissect the power of leverage in real estate. So with rates being that low, and like Tiffany said, jump on the train. Even if it's a little higher for you as an investor, we can always modify your finance situation. And going into the purchase process, right, Dan, it's important to know where you stand with financing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the first goals for us is with our clients is, you know, we want to know what number, where you want to top out in the shopping process. And the only way to know that is what you're going to be comfortable with on a monthly basis. And the only way to know that is to talk to a reputable lender, give them the information you need, your income and expenses, they can put that together. And that's the first step, right? Bringing clarity to what matters most is, you know, financially, how is this going to impact you? I wanted to show this chart though. This is interesting. When I graduated high school in 1981, Tiffany, we paid 18.5% interest rate. Yee! This is like buying a house on a credit card, right? Outrageous. Yeah. I started real estate in 2005, and right about then was the first time it ever dipped under 6%. And if you look at that, it never got under 6% for like ever, ever. Right? And then it went back and forth, 4s, 5s. Now it's in the 3s. That's outrageously low cost of money. Mm-hmm. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how people build wealth. They leverage through borrowing money from somebody else at a low rate, right? And then your return on that money is greater than the cost of the money.
Hey, fun fact, Dan, rates are actually artificially high right now.
Oh.
The gap between what they should be lending and what the people are offering has been increased. Lenders are, in light of the pandemic, they're adding a little gap. It's risk management. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. So we'll see how that plays out for the rest of the year.
Right. It depends on the economy too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. All right. So this chart shows you what happens with the rise of interest rates. So it's below 4% today, right? 3, what do we say? 3.5, 3.7 in that range, 3.8. But let's just say for round numbers, it's 4%. And let's just say at some point in time, it will likely go up to 5%, right? There's a very good chance at some point that's going to happen. Well, when it does, if you want to keep your payments the same at 1910, which is typically how people make decisions on their payments, then what happens is you've now lost $55,000 of buying power because you no longer can buy the $500,000 property. you can only buy a $445,000 property to keep the payments the same. So what this means, ladies and gentlemen, is a 1% rise of interest rate, you lose 11% of buying power. This is why it's so important to leverage that low cost of money while it's available.
And just look at the purchase price, that you're qualified for between the interest rates, right? A $500,000 home is a very different from a home from a 445. I mean, that means the difference between, 1 or 2 bedrooms or a washer dryer in the unit, things that are important. So it's actually a big impact on your qualification.
Exactly. And that's going to impact your primary residence, but it also impact your ability to see the numbers at the end when you're an investor as well. So that, again, huge, if for no other reason, if you want to buy, it's because of interest rates, because that's the lowest cost of money. I mean, you can see it right here. Imagine if it was and then you waited to buy until next year and it's 5%, you can't buy the same property anymore, right? You cannot.
Yeah, and by then, who knows if property values are up too, so then you
Yeah, what
yourself
happens
back
then?
a couple steps. Yeah.
I just wanted to add, Dan, that if anybody out there in the Zoom group wants to or is curious about the numbers involved with a particular property or at a particular purchase price at any rate, just give us a call, shoot me a text or an email, and I can prepare something for you to look at that's graphical, and you'd be surprised how quickly we can get it out. Just
Wow.
Calculators and whatnot.
Thank you, John. That's hugely valuable, because how do we make a decision to buy, right, until we see the numbers? Really can't, right? So good, awesome. So how do you get pre-qualified? Oh, before we go there, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, the Honolulu Board of Realtors has a new COVID policy, and the COVID policy says you can't show a property unless you're pre-qualified. So we don't have a choice in the matter any longer. Right, and so that's why we want to. If you want to see a home and you want us to show it to you, we got to get you pre-approved, pre-qualified, pre-approved. Okay. Sorry, John. Go ahead.
Yes, and so I know we have some people who have been on the calls. This series has been great. I've learned a lot, and so hopefully that's been time to gather the documents here that we see, laundry list. Just a few things. This shows our lenders that you've got the income and the assets to qualify for that loan. So get well qualified. We'll get you that letter and you can go house hunting.
Absolutely.
Shopping.
And what, can they just email this to you? How do they normally get it to you?
We make it easy. You can drop it off at a branch. I can come to you. Email typically works. Whatever's easiest. I can set up a secure email to transmit the documents through too. Yeah.
Well, great, sir. And you'll pick it up or you can drop it off at a branch? Wow.
Oh, yes.
Which branches would that be?
So we are a joint venture with Central Pacific Bank. So any branch, attention to the home loans division will get there. But also keep in mind, we have products from mortgage from wholesale lenders across the country as well.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, John. Appreciate that.
Awesome.
So I want to buy, but I got furloughed. What are my options?
Yeah.
John, what do we do in a case like that? I mean, there's not a lot we can do, right?
So we have seen a little bit of a cycle, yeah, Dan. So people have been furloughed, they've been rehired.
Yep.
They're getting back to work now.
Yep.
So
yeah, this won't be as much of a problem going forward as the hotels start filling in, right?
Right.
Yes. We hope so. We're very hopeful for that.
My son works at a restaurant and he's back. He started work full time yesterday, getting the restaurant ready. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we just treat it as a continuation of income. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, what we're looking at is how do we help people build wealth through real estate? And there's a couple ways to look at it, right? There's one way to look at it as a passive income. The other is active income. And we've taken a number of wealth building classes, and we teach them also that ideally, in the ideal world, if you could build a dream of what the future could look like, what you want to have is enough passive income that equates to all of your active income. See, if your passive income can be the same amount of money as your active income, you no longer have to do the active income because you have the passive income to live on, right? And it supports the lifestyle you like, right? So that's really one of the goals. What does it take to get there? It's going to take a number of investment properties or investments in businesses or stock or what have you to be able to do that. So that's one of the things that we can work on, is creating a strategy around how do you get there. And at the end, you'll learn about a 5-step process to do that. The active income, that's just mathematical numbers that we can put together based on what we know in actual numbers, and then there's comparable numbers. And when we sit down, we can kind of share with people this amazing spreadsheet Tiff's put together that can help you better understand if that property is actually a really good investment or not. So, who's thought of investing in real estate? Anybody?
I know Helene.
Cool. So the next question is, what's preventing you from investing? If you want to, but haven't yet, at least, what's getting in the way? Right? What would prevent you to move down that road? Oh, JD's ready. Well, the first question is really, what's your strategy? Like, do you have one? And if you don't, like, how do you create one? Right?
What does that look like, right? Let's say you're ready. What's the next step, Dan? What do we do?
Well, the first step is to understand what your risk tolerance is. So when we sit down with our clients, there's a lot of questions we're going to ask, right? Because part of that decision of how you proceed in investment properties is your level of risk that you're willing to take, right? Many folks are not high risk takers. Most of our clients are not. Some are a little bit more risk takers than others based on your short-term cash flow versus also capital appreciation. And so people see it differently, right? And everyone has a different reason for investing. And so that's one of the reasons why we start with better understanding what you're comfortable with and what your risk tolerance looks like. The next question is really, why are you doing this? Right? Well, what's your big why? What's driving you to want to build wealth through real estate? What's it going to do for your life and for the people that you are around you? And bringing clarity to that, because that's what drives everything in life, right? Is your big why. As long as we're clarity on your big why, then we can line up the dominoes to help you get there and put a time frame on it. So it's really, it's just a 5-step strategy. It's pretty simple. You can do it on your own. You can call us and we can help you, whatever it may be. But it's really, first is understanding your current situation. Where are you now? I mean, your income, what's the likelihood of your compensation rising or dropping, right? And we need to understand that. Situation with your family, relatives, parents. We talk about parents, we talk about their siblings, and we talk about their children, because some of the times that comes into play in the big scope of things, right? And then identifying any of the challenges that are in the way. Right? Is it the credit challenge? Is it the down payment challenge? Is it making decision challenges, whatever that might be? And then clarifying the goals, right? What is really the end goal? We have some clients that want cash flow. We have some clients that want future appreciation. It just depends on the person. Because, right, Tiff, everyone's different. I mean, all of our clients, we can't guess it.
Yeah, every situation is different. There's a lot of different benefits to owning and investing in real estate, aside from a capital appreciation and cash flow. You have tax benefits, of course, seek advice from your tax attorney, but there's a lot. So it just kind of depends on short-term, long-term goals. Yeah.
And then just learn what the options are that are available. If I could, would I, based on these options? And then what we do is we just create a plan. Right? We put a timetable together and we put a professional team together. What you're going to need is obviously an experienced realtor. You'll need an experienced lender. And then somebody's got to guide you through the entire process, right? The due diligence. And I think we have another class on that. We just had one, right?
Yeah,
Um,
that was
uh,
last week.
yeah, 10 things you need to know before buying a home, something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, your rights when buying a home. Yeah.
Yes, that's the one.
And so if you want those are all on our website as well. I believe it's at iharateam.kw.com. And on our Facebook, I believe we have those videos as well. So yeah, feel free to dive in, see what you'll want to learn. Buying a home is a big deal. It's probably the biggest decision we're going to make, right, in our lifetime, as far as financial decisions. And if you don't do this all the time, it's really hard. But we do, so we can help.
Yeah, and that's what we're here for. We're here to help you in your journey, in your goal. Think of us, lean on us, right? This is ultimately your story. And we're just here to help facilitate that story for you.
Yeah, what we say in our world is you're the hero.
Yeah.
We're just trying to help you brighten up your journey, right? And it's enjoyable. Really important though to have information, right? Really important to know the things you need to know about buying a home. And yeah, that's what we can definitely help with. So giving you, wrapping up here, we started in real estate 15 years ago, 2005 in summer, actually just about now, actually. My wife started with me, Julie. Julie's there, she's hiding. And then we have a team of, about 28 of us, Tiffany being one of our agents that has really helped a lot of our investors as well. And that's why we built a model around the spreadsheets and the information. We do an asset performance test. We can test the performance of all the assets that you own, things like that. We have a property management firm because we have a lot of investing clients that needed help managing it. So we brought on a guy that was Julie's classmate for a long time ago, from small kid time. And we have about 145 doors we manage there. We started Senior Move Managers in Declutter Hawaii, helping older adults transition life. And dealing with their personal belongings is always one of the biggest challenges. So we go in and we help them process where to go, how to get there, and how do we help them with their stuff. Right. We started Stage Hawaii because staging is very important. In today's world, people shop on their cell phone, right? And what are they looking at? They're looking at pictures. And so we want to make those pictures look as good as possible. Therefore, we started Stage Hawaii, mainly because staging was expensive and we wanted to provide a service at less of a cost. So we do this at a fraction of the cost of what it would normally cost on the outside, mainly for our clients. And Tiffany is the one that is the mastermind behind that organization as well. It makes it look beautiful. Silver Spoons is a nonprofit helping older adults who cannot help themselves. That's our 501c3. That's very challenging for us to serve our kupuna. It just takes a lot of time, money, and resources. And then lastly, the Complete Solution is really a training company that we train real estate agents around the country to build the complete solution, providing these solutions to seniors and investors all around the country. And I think we're almost up. Oh, a few more seminars. Wait, is that right? What's today? No, that's not right.
Oh no, those are last month.
That's last month.
Try the
Yeah.
next slide.
June just came upon us so quickly.
Yeah, right? Anyway, if you are interested in any one of these are not, well, these are old, but if you go to our site or how do we find that, Carrie?
So on the bottom, it says ihara.eventbrite.com. And I'm sorry, I'm not Carrie.
Thanks, honey.
No, that's all right. That's a great place. You know, our Eventbrite is a wonderful place to go, and especially if you wanted to RSVP, that we do have on our, like Dan mentioned, on our website, iharateamhawaii.kw.com. You'll find both the webinar schedule and also the recordings of these. And so if you wanted to revisit anytime, share with somebody that may be interested but couldn't attend today, that's where you'll find all of the schedule and the recordings.
Just so that you do know that for the month of June, the times and the dates, it'll be every Thursday at noon as well as every Saturday at 10:30. We will be having some type of webinar.
Yeah. Let's just talk real estate. It's just fun. And what's really cool is when people ask questions, right? And we engage and we can just talk story about stuff. And, you know, we've helped over almost 1,100 transactions close. So there's a lot of stories back there that we don't have enough time for. Closing up, you know, our mission is really to honor God by serving others with the highest level of competency, care, and compassion with uncompromising integrity. And if you're interested for a strategy session, sitting down with us to kind of put a plan together, we can do that. Just let us know in the chat box or message us directly. And we'd love your feedback to learn more about what you think we should do on these webinars or to improve them. As Carrie mentioned earlier, our upcoming webinars are there on our site as well as Eventbrite. And then we also have virtual open houses and walkthroughs of properties. And if you're interested to see them, that's how to get to that information. Any questions that we didn't hit? Any questions?
There's not a question, but there's a great testimony from Helene on the chat.
What's
If
this?
you want to read that, or
Yeah, sure. Helene wrote, you know, I encourage everyone to invest in real estate. I had to work my way up economically after a divorce and retired as a state owner. It was my investment in real estate that helped me get into Kahala Nui. That's awesome.
Congratulations, Helene.
that is
You're-
awesome.
Yes.
You're what we all aspire to become. You know, one day when we grow up. That's awesome, right? I mean, that's the think about it. That's most people's future dream, right? To be able to have care taken care of for you and not have to worry about money.
And also not, you know, to not have that burden on your children as they grow up and go into their lives. You want to be able to sustain yourself financially, and you do that through investing in real estate, I believe.
Yeah, the passive income. For a lot of our clients, it's really the long-term care plan, right? Many folks don't have long-term care, and if they do, this supplements that future financial protection. All right. I think we're kind of wrapped up here. Do we have any other questions, comments, anything else you guys want to talk about?
There was a question that just came in from Gary. He's asking, do you work with any mainland contacts to help sell home furnishings?
Home furnishings?
Yeah.
Furniture? We have a lot of contacts on the mainland. Help sell phone. Yes, actually we do, depending on what city. Let me know, Gary. So we're part of the National Association of Senior Move Managers. There's a whole industry of companies. We're the only one in Hawaii that's part of this association. There's a couple thousand of them around, and they do the same thing we do by selling items. So we might be able to find somebody depending on the city that you're looking at. We have a bunch of real estate friends in all over the country. If you're thinking if anybody needs help, anyone who wants information regarding values or what have you, just let us know. Fortunately, we're part of Gary Keller's mastermind group, where he takes the top 100 agents. Now there's like 200 or 300 of us in the group, and we mastermind best practices. So these are guys that have businesses like twice the size of ours, or 2 or 3 times. It's huge businesses, but high performers in each area.
We got
Helene
another
asked-
question. Yeah, from Helene. I'm sorry, Tip. Helene was asking, should we sell an older property for a newer property?
Good question. That's actually what we're seeing a lot of now.
Yes.
When we're talking about an older property to a newer property, so what's common is older condos, right? Because a lot of our clients, they bought them when they were super cheap and now they're a lot more expensive, but then the maintenance fees just kept rising, right? And when you run the numbers on an investment property, that's the biggest variable you're gonna have, is your maintenance fee, right? That reoccurs every month, which is an expense that cuts into your profit. So we see a lot of that happening. We also see a lot of older homes being sold because the home's value is really in the land, right? So you take a 1940s, 1950s home that's been dilapidated, has $1,200 of rent. Nothing could sell for $1 million, right? Then you take that money and then you put it into something else that's newer, that you don't have to worry about maintenance on, and then but your net income is so much higher.
Yeah.
So 100%. We have another client that's selling a Manoa house. That was one that I think it's probably worth close to $1 million. We're thinking of selling that, and then she's thinking of getting a loan because the rates are so low. We looked at one that was up to 1.5 million, so she's getting a small mortgage, maybe $300,000 or $400,000 mortgage. But this $1.5 million property has 2 single-family homes on it that could yield her, $3,000 each, and it's a newer structure, right? So now her cash flow is enormously higher than what it was. And when you run all the numbers out, we can show them that it just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, with newer properties, I mean, just as you said, Dan, newer properties generally, like if we're talking about a condo, generally the maintenance fee is smaller because it's newer, and you have less to worry about with as far as maintenance or repairs. So those are 2 expenses that are usually higher in an older property. So
Yeah.
As well as assessments.
Yeah.
As well as assessments.
yes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's horrible if you had assessments. So if you're in an older building and there's talk in the board meetings of assessments, run for the hills as soon as you can. Honestly.
Well, find out what they are first.
But once it becomes recorded, though, then that's going to be a problem for the buyers. Again, it depends on how, like Julie said, if it's small, a couple $1,000s, or is it $50,000 to $100,000? That's a different story. But yeah, we have a lot of folks that are selling older properties now. In fact, most of them are older, right? And then they're buying into like a building like 801 South Street. That's one of my favorite investment buildings because the maintenance fees are so low.
Yeah.
You can get a studio for under $300 a month, a maintenance $287 or something like that.
Because they have all that parking that they rent out. They have other income to support.
Other income.
Yeah, and they have the solar
PV,
panels.
right?
Yeah.
And it's close to downtown, so easy to rent. It's secured, it's safe. A lot of units so that the maintenance fee will stay low for a long time. So those are kind of buildings where we're kind of moving people from the older ones built in the 60s and 70s to newer model buildings within that price range. Awesome.
Any other questions, guys? These are great. I love the questions and the dialogue.
Yeah. Let's see. We actually, hey Martin, my pleasure. Look forward to finding that right one for you too. Cool. Well, if there's nothing else, I think we hit our time limit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have another meeting, Dan. So
We do. We have to talk to an investor.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right,
Thank
guys. Thanks for
Hey,
coming.
have a great rest of your weekend.
Have a great weekend. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.